The briefing room on the UHS Revenant was quiet, too quiet. A dozen officers stood around the holothable, eyes fixed on the floating projection of Cardan 4. Red markers pulsed across the surface, indicating known enemy positions. According to Coalition intelligence, the Velthari presence was minimal. But Alara Voss knew better. She leaned in, arms crossed over her black uniform, face unreadable under the low lights. "Why do they want us to deploy without orbital scans?" she asked, voice clipped. Lieutenant Reyes, her tactical officer, frowned. "They said it would alert the enemy. Stealth is a priority." Alara narrowed her eyes. "The Velthari already know we're here. Stealth doesn't explain why the rest of the Coalition fleet pulled back 5 hours ago." The room went silent again. She didn't need a reply. She already knew. With a gesture, she dismissed the hologram. "Suit up. Standard drops. We go in hard, and we leave no one behind." As the officers filed out, Alara turned to the comms panel and keyed in the CFS command frequency. The screen flickered. A pale-skinned Evzari admiral appeared, his silver robes pristine, his posture too relaxed. "Alara Voss," he greeted with a diplomatic smile. "I trust preparations are complete?" "Your data's garbage," she said flatly. "Either you're lying or incompetent. Which is it?" He chuckled, unbothered. "I assure you, Commander, our information is accurate. Your humans are resourceful, adaptable. You'll manage. You've already written us off," she said. "We're cannon fodder." He didn't deny it. "Sometimes, sacrifices must be made." She ended the transmission mid-sentence. The launch bays buzzed with movement. Drop pods lined the rails, each one packed with armor-clad soldiers, grim faces beneath helmets, voices muted by routine. They didn't know the truth, not fully. Alara moved among them, checking weapons, locking eyes. They nodded back. "Trust." She climbed into her command pod just as the countdown began. 5. The gravity restraints tightened. 4. She tapped a small pendant inside her collar. Her brothers. Lost on a similar, light resistance mission last month. 3. This time, she wouldn't follow them blindly. 2. Never again. 1. Launch. The descent was violent. Anti-air fire lit the clouds below. A pod to their left exploded mid-atmosphere, shrapnel rattling off her hull like hail. "We're early." Reyes's voice crackled in her ear. "No support. They're hitting us hard already." The pod slammed into the dirt, jolting her forward. The hatch hissed open. Smoke, chaos, screams. Her boots hit the soil of Cardan 4. Plasma rounds zipped past. Half the company was already pinned. "There's no way this is light resistance," Reyes shouted as he crouched beside her. "They're dug in, full battalion strength. Fall back to the ridge," Alara ordered. "Reset perimeter and call evac. I'm not dying for their data." She knew already. There would be no extraction. Above the battlefield, the Revenant hovered at the edge of low orbit, its stealth systems still engaged. Alara's second-in-command, Lieutenant Kaido, stared at the flickering enemy readings. "Commander," he said into the comms, "you're surrounded. Coalition forces have cleared the region. They're gone." She didn't hesitate. "Launch gunships. Give me fire support now." "But the Coalition isn't here. This is our fight now." Seconds later, the Revenant's rail cannons unleashed a barrage into the hills. The ground trembled as enemy encampments vanished under the thunder. Alara coordinated the retreat, covering every angle. The squad regrouped, bloodied, limping, but alive. As the last man boarded the evac shuttle, she looked back at the battlefield one final time. It was a slaughter. But not her slaughter. They regrouped in orbit. The medbays overflowed. Alara stood in the central bridge, face illuminated by starlight. "Comms?" she asked. "Still jamming the CFS signal," Kaido replied. "Good. Let them wonder." Reyes limped in. They never intended for us to survive. No, she said. But we did. That was their mistake. He handed her a data pad. Recovered transmission logs. The orders didn't come from Field Command. This was planned weeks ago. Test human effectiveness in high fatality environments. She read it, jaw clenched. Test subjects. Her hand gripped the console. No more. She called a private crew meeting. Just the senior officers. The air was tense. Everyone already knew, deep down. They used us, she said. Send us in to die. We survived, so now they'll try to leash us. No one spoke. I'm not letting that happen. We're not pawns. We're not footnotes in someone else's war. Reyes leaned forward. What are you saying? She looked at them, one by one. I'm saying we go dark. No more missions. No more orders. We fight when we choose, on our terms. And Earth? Someone asked. We protect it, by staying alive. By showing them we won't be their weapons. Not anymore. There was silence. Then, one by one, they nodded. Later, Alara stood alone at the viewport, watching the starfield stretch into the void. The Revenant hummed around her, a predator lurking between worlds. She reached into her collar, held the small pendant tight. They wanted obedient soldiers, she whispered. They got wolves instead. And wolves don't forget. The UHS Revenant drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, lights dimmed, hull cold. No signals. No emissions. Just silence, until the first strike came. It began with the Veltri outpost on Dreshna 9, a communications hub responsible for relaying orders to 6 systems. A day ago, it was a fortified garrison surrounded by orbiting sentries. Now it was ash. They never saw it coming, Lieutenant Reyes said, arms folded, watching the burning structure collapse on the hollow feed. They didn't have time to, Alara replied. We hit them before they finished their morning cycle. Tactical warfare had changed. Human forces didn't announce themselves, didn't engage in ceremonial strategy or drawn-out battles. They moved like shadows. Hit fast. Vanish faster. In the war room, Alara outlined the next target. Her crew stood in silence as she pointed to a Dominion fuel convoy scheduled to pass near the Astari cloud. 8 transports, minimal escort. We disable them, harvest the fuel, and leave their wreckage floating. Lieutenant Kaido leaned over the rail. That'll choke supply lines to 3 Dominion fronts. Exactly, Alara said. We're not winning battles, we're shifting the war's momentum. They didn't need approval anymore. No CFS admirals to please. No politicians to pacify. The Revenant was rogue, self-sustained, and feared. On the bridge, Reyes reviewed a report. Veltri Command's broadcasting emergency doctrines. They're calling us a feral strike cell. No name, no faction. Just ghosts. Alara almost smiled. Good. She'd studied Veltri warfare. Rigid hierarchies, slow adaptive cycles. Human unpredictability was their blind spot. They couldn't map human thought because it refused to stay consistent. That wasn't chaos. It was freedom. In a cold metal chamber below decks, a Veltri captive twitched inside a containment field. Alara stood outside the glass, arms behind her back. The creature had 4 legs, serrated limbs folded inward, and a crown of fleshy antennae that pulsed like heartbeats. Its compound eyes glowed faintly. You expected a charge, Alara said. You expected banners and battle songs. We didn't give you either. The Veltri hissed. You are rot, shaped into bone. No, she replied calmly. We're the result of every broken promise. You taught the galaxy to kneel. We didn't listen. Its voice came again, layered with strange frequencies. You do not belong in this war. You dragged us into it, she said. Now we play by our rules. Far across the stars, on the throne world of Velther Prime, Overmind Kael'zar studied the reports with narrowed gaze. His advisors spoke in whispers, nervous around the ancient Psion. The humans crippled Dreshna 9, one muttered. and then disappeared. No pattern. No trace. Kael'Zar clicked his mandibles slowly. Their minds do not resonate with our probes. They reflect noise, pain, loss, fragments of chaos. Another advisor spoke. They don't follow strategic models. They react like cornered beasts. No, the Overmind said. They react like predators who learn patience. He stood, his shimmering carapace flexing. Begin psychic dampening experiments. I want one of them alive. I want to understand this, rot. Back aboard the Revenant, the crew reviewed intercepted transmissions. Coalition forces were starting to notice. They're tracking our raids, Kaido said. Not to help, just to see where we'll hit next. Elara tapped through the logs. One message from a CFS cruiser stood out. Revenant-class vessel has gone dark. Possible asset. Possible threat. Contain if located. So now we're dangerous enough to monitor. Reyes muttered. They're afraid, Elara said. Afraid we'll expose them. Afraid we're better at this than they are. She closed the display. We'll make sure they stay afraid. 3 days later, they attacked again. A Velthari Psi lab on Telthos Prime vanished in the night, gutted by precision charges and infected with a neurovirus that Elara's engineers modified from Dominion code. No kill count, no declarations. Just silence, and then ruin. They left one message behind. Scorched into the wall of the main spire and broken Velthari glyphs. We remember. In the ship's private lounge, Elara sat alone, replaying a fragment of her brother's final transmission. If you're hearing this, it means they fed us to the fire again. But damn it, Elara, promise me, don't let them use you too. His voice cracked at the end. She paused the playback, stared at the dark screen. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Reyes entered without a word and dropped a datachip beside her. What's this? She asked. CFS comlog. They knew exactly how many of us would die on Cardan 4. They signed off on it as acceptable cost. Elara pocketed the chip. Acceptable, she echoed, voice low. We'll see how acceptable it is when they lose control. That night, in a closed meeting with her top crew, Elara outlined the next step. No more reacting, she said. We go hunting. Kaido frowned. Targets? Command nodes. Psionic nexuses. Propaganda hubs. If it props up their power, we take it down. Reyes exhaled slowly. We'll be terrorists to them. Maybe, Elara said. But to the ones they silence? We'll be something else. She didn't say the word. But they all felt it. Hope. On the far side of a fractured asteroid belt, the Revenant slipped between sensor shadows, a silent blade against the void. Its crew didn't wear insignias anymore. They didn't speak of Earth with longing or sadness. They had become something else. Something the galaxy didn't understand yet, but would soon. And the war would never be the same again. A fog of radiation drifted through Sector A-19, veiling the shattered ruins of a Dominion listening post. No distress signals. No survivors. Just static and silence, again. Elara stood at the command deck of the Revenant, arms crossed, watching footage of the aftermath. Velthari Command had already marked it as an anomalous loss. Their analysts couldn't make sense of it. No entry logs, no escape trajectories. To them, it was like the humans had slipped between moments. We've hit 7 targets in 4 systems, Kaido said, and they're still treating it like weather. They don't know how to fight what they can't predict, Elara replied. And that terrifies them. The door slid open. Reyes entered, holding a neural drive. We cracked one of the Dominion intercept codes, he said. We've been labeled a Category Zeta threat. Kaito raised a brow. That's their designation for unknown anomalies. Not enemies. Elara took the drive and slid it into the holodeble. The Dominion message blinked open, encrypted, distorted, but one phrase came through clearly. Contain the humans. At all costs. An hour later, the Revenant floated beneath the magnetic rings of Valor 3, preparing to raid a psionic data vault embedded in the rock below. Dominion facilities like this weren't guarded with soldiers, they were protected by thought-reactive fields and psychic decoys. That made no difference to Alara. She wasn't relying on brute force. She had something far better: unpredictability. Her team dropped silently through the ion layer, landing just outside the vault perimeter. Inside, they moved with surgical precision: no lights, no chatter, no second-guessing. In under 6 minutes, they'd breached the core and uploaded Dominion research protocols. As they exfiltrated, Reyes paused near a stasis pod, one still humming. "Alara," he said through comms. "There's someone in here." She joined him, scanning the readout. Not Valtteri. Not Dominion at all. CFS agent, she muttered. "Name, Ailey Senator Embedded Recon Operative." Reyes frowned. "Why is the Dominion keeping a coalition spy alive?" "That's the question," Alara said. "Bring her back." Later, in the medbay, Ailey blinked slowly under sterile light. She looked human, but worn, sunken eyes, trembling hands. "You're Alara Voss," she said weakly. "I am." "You're not dead." "Not yet." Sin sat up slowly. "The Coalition thinks you've gone rogue. There's a bounty on your head in 4 sectors. That's about right. They're afraid you'll start a war they can't control." Alara's stare didn't waver. "They already did. I just refuse to play corpse." Sin coughed. "You're building something. Something outside their reach." "I'm making sure humanity survives," Alara said. "If that frightens them, good." Sin hesitated. "Not everyone in the Coalition wanted what happened on Cardan. Some of us." "You did nothing," Alara interrupted. "You watched us burn." "I tried," Sin said, voice cracking. "They silenced me." Alara turned to leave. "Then speak louder. Or don't speak at all." That night, in her quarters, Alara watched decrypted Dominion data flicker across her screen. A strange pattern emerged. One file detailed experimental psionic feedback loops, tests where Valtteri subjects were exposed to recorded human mental states. The results: mental instability, seizures, even death. Kaido entered quietly. "We verified those logs. They tried using human emotion to destabilize their own soldiers, failed spectacularly." "They can't process us," Alara murmured. "Our memories, our pain, it breaks them. They were trying to weaponize it." She looked up. "So we will." The next raid wasn't on a station. It was on mines. Using captured Dominion broadcast arrays, Alara's engineers crafted a signal: raw, unfiltered streams of combat footage, dying cries, last words, and every recorded betrayal humans had suffered since the war began. Then they injected it into Valtteri command networks. Within an hour, 3 battle squadrons turned on themselves. In the aftermath, a message came. Not from the Dominion. From the CFS. It arrived in a sealed diplomatic packet, encoded with outdated Earth protocols, an attempt at familiarity. Alara opened it on the bridge. The sender appeared, Admiral Trask of the Coalition's Central Command. Stoic, unreadable. "Commander Voss," he began, "your actions are destabilizing the front. You've stepped outside the chain of command." "There is no chain," she replied, live, without delay. "You broke it when you used us as bait." Trask didn't flinch. "You're risking galactic unity. Return to CFS jurisdiction and we'll grant conditional amnesty." "No. You misunderstand," he said. "This isn't a request. It's a warning." "Then hear mine," she said, leaning forward. "If you come for us, we won't hide. We'll remind every system who spilled the first blood." He stared at her for several seconds, then cut the transmission. Reyes exhaled slowly. "That door's closed." Alara nodded. "Then we burn a new one open." In the lower decks, Ailey stood beside Kaido, watching the crew run drills. She spoke quietly. "She scares them." "She scares us too," Kaido said. "But not for the same reasons." Sin turned to him. "She's changing the war." He didn't answer. Because deep down, they all knew this wasn't just war anymore. It was evolution. And humanity had stopped asking permission.